Yes, people, we live. Black Eyes TV in the house again. Bring you more information. We got a bit of a makeshift show today, but I want to give a special thanks to Ngozi, our special guest, for joining us. But before we get to him, let me get to my co-host, Mr. Riggs. Talk to the people then.
Evening, people. We know it's late in the UK. It's 11:30, but you know what? We're still gonna keep it moving, keep it going. All about the scholarship, all about the information, all about the knowledge. You know, you got to keep it black all the time and every time. We've got one special guest in today. We've got the man they call Ngozi from the team Osiris, and he's gonna relay all the information that he knows and the knowledge from his perspective, as this is the school of thought. So let's hit this show off by people. Please share, subscribe, and give the information out to everyone that you can reach. How are you doing, Mr. Ngozi?
Love, brother. Peace and love. Hotep, Ujat, Sanab, Salam. Peace and love to the whole family. Peace and love to the black family globally. To my brothers and sisters out there in the UK, brothers and sisters back on the continent of Africa, and the family here in the diaspora, all of us in the West, man. But it's much love, man, and much power. And I thank you for allowing me to come here, you guys, man, and network about whatever's going on, man, consciously, to keep this vibe going and moving, man. So I got big up and much love for the UK, man, and much love for what y'all got going on out there. It's a large conscious circuit buzz and vibrating out there. So much love to y'all, man. Peace and love.
No, it's all about that balance, you know, and it's all about sharing the information that of each person of their schools and their thoughts. Now, as I'm saying, Richie, kick it off, man. Give us some relays on what our title's about and what we're going to talk about.
All right, people, listen.
Oh, well, I think
Ngozi, before you even kick off, let me just let the people know, because again, a lot of people seen the advert and they may have been expecting Taha Kabay to be joining us, and through one thing or the other, he's not here at the moment. And just through the universe aligning, me and my brother Ngozi spoke today, and he was come with the same knowledge, the same information, the same perspective. So again, that's why he's on today, to kick that knowledge about the Moorish paradigm. So now, without further ado, Mr. Ngozi, speak to the people on what you need to present, brother.
Well, I wanted to talk about the, I mean, I know it was important. You guys are going to talk about the peace treaty between Morocco and the United States. I wanted the world to know a lot of the Moorish, not all, but a lot of the Moorish science temples of America, original Moors, as they call themselves, they have a false sense of knowledge of this Moorish peace treaty, of that they were already here. And the Moors from Morocco, the United States, in the sense of they allowed them to have access to certain resources within the continent of the United States of America. And I don't think they really understand the subject between Morocco and America. If we study the history between 1777 or Ibn Ahad Muhammad III or Sultan Muhammad III, trade, it was for trade, because Morocco was being shifted. They were being treated like crap. The Algerians and the Tunisians controlled most of the trade ports. When they recognized the United States independency, they recognized them in the sense of, you know, powerful or we're giving them power. It wasn't that. Morocco was at a dead end. They had to get themselves in the trade market. United States independency, because during this time in 1777, going on between Britain and the United States. 1783, sending out, you know, kites or sending out some type of signals to America to get some type of recognition, because he was trying to put himself in the market. So at the time, as the independency, America was on its way of development in the sense of being independent with Britain, a lot of people. So they were still kind of like a renegade of Britain before it was able to be recognized as its own unit. So Morocco recognized it, but it was for the trade or the assets for Morocco to have some type of between the two. Thomas Barclay, who was a merchant from Philadelphia, he was the first diplomat to create the contract with Morocco and the United States, and also Thomas Jefferson also signed it. So around 1786, the treaty was signed, but it had nothing to do with independently first, or this being America. I mean, this being Morocco's territory. It wasn't that. America was his own thing. Morocco was his own thing. But at the time prior before, Morocco was done. They had no asset to trade. So they was trying to get their trade route going. And this peace treaty that we have, 240 years to this day, for trade. It had nothing to do with you know, these are the Moors in America and all that, because us being from sub-Saharan West Africa was still enslaved at the time. Slavery was abolished in the United States in 1886. After the peace treaty, or the friendly peace treaty, States, which happened in 1786. The slavery was abolished in the United States in 1865. I'm sorry. So it's 1865, slavery was abolished in the United States of America. In 1786. So it wasn't because we love or they love black people. Morocco never really had any ties with sub-Saharan black Africans. I mean, they did, because you had a lot of Wolof and a few Mandinka.
That's the thing, brother. Yeah, let me just interject quickly. Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask you. As far as Morocco goes, paint a picture for us of what Morocco looks like at the time of this peace treaty. Because again, one of the major arguments is it's a black nation, it's a black empire, etc., etc. So give us the backdrop to what Morocco looks like at the time of this treaty.
Well, at this treaty, the Berbers wasn't even in power at this time. This is during the time when the Ottoman Empire is connected to Morocco. This is Turks. These are not even Berbers or Amazigh or indigenous aboriginal groups of Africans. I mean, sub-Saharan Africans in power. Don't get it twisted. You had Berbers that live in the area. You got over 14 tribes of Berbers. You got Thori, you got Sahawi, you got Kabali, you got different groups of them. This time the Berbers was already out of power. Matter of fact, Berbers haven't been in power since the Arabs conquered North Africa in 690 AD. Remember, the North Africa in 641 AD through Egypt and Sudan. AD, they fought against the Berbers and they conquered them in 690. Remember, the last queen, if I'm not mistaken, she fought against the Arabs and then she died, got killed, and her sons converted to Islam much later. A lot of Berbers used to be Jewish at one time, and they had their own indigenous. So at this time, Morocco were connected to Turkey. This was an Ottoman Empire connection. So what they would have looked like, I mean, some of the people that you see up there today, they will look like light-skinned people. And you had a few sub-Saharan blacks there, because there are black indigenous Amazigh who live in southern Morocco and in southern Tunisia. You also have, you know, Wolof descendants, Fulani nomads going backwards and forward. But the people that was in power, they didn't look like you and me. They look like people that live in Turkey or the Sultan that you see in Morocco today.
Right. And what were the majority of the black people doing in the populace at that time?
It's really, I mean, they were working. I mean, you know, the color cast things was going on at this time. They were working. I mean, Moroccans, to all of them, because a lot of Moroccans do identify themselves as Africa. It's Africa. People in power, they have a caste thing between blacks and lighter skin. A lot of the blacks treated the same way they were being mistreated by Arabs in East Africa. Treated by, even if you study East Africa, it's kind of quasi, because a lot of our Somali brothers and sisters who were converted to Islam were helping kidnap these that they don't talk about. Study the history. And even the Ethiopians or the remnants of the Aksumite Empire, they had ties with the Byzantine Empire and they were connected to Syria. So they were important Nilotic groups and also Bantu speaking groups east, and also the people that were in North Africa, they already had a caste thing going between some blacks based off certain lifestyles of certain families. The same thing that you see in Mauritania in certain ports in certain areas, and the same things you see going on in northern Libya. This stuff at time is not new. Moroccans don't really, if you study them through history with blacker, there is a distinction between the two. There's a line between, and it's been going on for a long time. But there's more ways to look African or be African than just having a specific skin tone. I mean, we can even go back in history. So people, first, if we go back to the Punic Wars, was in Tunisia, which was Carthage at the time. One of the Amazigh or Berber tribes were called Afri or Adaga, you know what I'm saying, who were actually classified as African first. Before he conquered them and took their name during the time of Hannibal or whatever, he conquered the group and took on a name, and Scipio Africanus took on that name of the Adaga or Afri tribe that lived in Tunisia. In the timeline, you can see what's going on. So these Berbers between the two, but this right here of Morocco and America, Berbers wasn't even in power. You're talking about Arabs already ran through them for the Arabs, for the Romans, and then after that you have, you know, modern day Turks that's coming in there, and this is all an Ottoman connection. No African was in power, or sub-Saharan.
I'm feeling you.
Hey, this consul right here, brother. Hold on 1 second.
Bring him in. Listen,
all right.
Listen, people. I want to big up everybody in the chat room so far. Yeah, I want to big up everything is everything. Melanin Rich. Yeah. Big up Bernie. Big up Shame the Devil. Big up you what, mate. Yeah. Big up to all the listeners so far inside the groove. Yeah, tuning in. As I said, we were supposed to have Tahaka Bay on, but through one thing to the other, he didn't make it to the show, and our brother Ngozi has stepped into the breach to give us a quick presentation, so big up to him. Riggs, you still there?
Hey, brother Consul said, I'm sorry, pardon the body. Brother Consul said, could you send him the link box on Facebook and he'll get on here.
All right, I'm gonna do that right now. While you keep talking, then, brother, let me deal with that then.
Yes. Yes, people. I hope you're enjoying the information, and I hope you're enjoying everything that is going on as we are waiting for Brother Consul to come on. I want you to able to have this opportunity as we have these award ceremonies coming up in June, and we are trying to get a collective of UK people to reach to the United States, New York, and we're asking for your help out there to help to donate to our situation so that we can get some people who can't fully afford to get over, and for the people of the media, which will be carrying a lot of equipment and a lot of stuff and able to provide things in a live format for you in the UK. So we're asking for you to able to fund us at GoFundMe -UK USA link up. Please donate so we can able to provide this legacy at this precise moment for you in the UK, across Europe, to the Caribbean, to Africa. So we're asking for that help as much as possible. Secondly, we have a website coming up which is going to be selling all different types of products. Because we're trying to behave as a form of a distribution company, we are asking you if you want to advertise, promote, or whatsoever about your company on Black Eyes TV or anywhere else, because we can do advertising campaigns. We are offering our services to you as much as possible. At the same time, if you have goods and you want to be able to distribute your goods around the globe, as we are connecting with many people, we can behave as a form of a distribution hub. So we're going to continue in this dialogue and information as Ngozi was talking about earlier.
Yeah, Brother Konsu should be in shortly. I've shot him over the link, so he should be joining us momentarily. Yeah, Ngozi.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, brother, right. You was wrapping up the scene of Morocco. Give us more of a backdrop now, going back to the USA side, because again, we're living in this time frame. The Moors that are talking about this treaty and how applicable it is are living in this time frame, not that time frame. So again, give us a bit more about why or what America's doing at that time of the time frame. Where are they at as a power base? What's the nation looking at? Are they still at war with the Native Americans? Is it indigenous? Who are they? What's the backdrop to that now?
Oh man, the 1700s, it was the white boy in America. I mean, we talking about, remember, they brought the first African slaves here in 1545 or 1545 or 1563. You had the first slaves brought here before they kept importing them. Later, it came to a time when they was dropping enough people off in the Caribbean, a lot of them up here. 5% of the slaves made it here. At that time period, it was what, up to, in the beginning in 1545, it was up to 10,000 of the first experimental group. And then later around 100, you had up to 10 million. Most of the slaves was dropped off from Brazil. It was dropped off all through the Caribbean. 5% of the group started making it up towards North America. So they were doing it in increments, but in each increment, there were large portions. Native Americans wasn't in power in the United States, chained up. So it was the European who was dominating the United States, but the United States wasn't recognized independently yet because the United States was still on the borderline of development. They were in the process of becoming their own independent nation. Morocco, who was desperate, who was getting treated by everybody, treated is what we say out here, you know, being neglected. They wanted to put themselves in the game. In the game, they like, hell, we recognize the United States nation, because they thought in their mind that somewhere down the line for us in between, if we recognize them now. You get what I'm saying? So
yeah.
They were trying to put themselves in the game economically through trade. Americans wasn't nothing at this time. The European already dominated over here. We talking about from the 15s to the 16s. We had the Spaniards being sent out by Rome in the early 1500s, who was Italian working for the Romans. He had, you know, Spanish merchants coming over here with him. And then afterwards, you had the French coming over here. And then way after, the Britons got themselves in the game and started doing what they wanted to do with the further North America. Europeans already dominated. We're talking about a 300-year gap. Water and destruction and death and trying to organize something. So the Native Americans wasn't doing anything. They were scrapping. They was trying to survive to the best of their ability. I said we were chained up. So there was no power. See, the thing is, the Moors, these new Moors, they want to deny history. And the history of what happened to us is so destructive, it's so sick, that we want to deny it as if it never happened. We can't let the white boy off the hook. Because when we start denying history, we're letting them off the hook to make it seem like, you know, we were already, no, it wasn't like, you wasn't always in power. That's bullshit. To make that up, to make yourself feel empowered. But in reality, it's false. It's false. The history of what happened to us is more grotesque and more than you can imagine. So we need to admit to what happened, because when you try to deny it and say, oh, slavery never happened, we were always here, you're letting the white boy off the hook. And we can't afford to let the white boy off the hook. Ancestors was horrible. It was horrible. And it's what we think. Transport them somewhere else. We on ship for up to 6 months. Get our language stripped away. Identity taken away. Niger Congo speaking groups, Yoruba, Fulani, Hausa, Igbo, Akan, different people from Angola, from, you know, certain groups. All these people come together to be imported over here and losing their sense of identity for cousins through force. Men getting their legs cut off because they can't escape because they don't want you to escape. People committing suicide. Newborn babies being thrown in the water. To deny all that shit, you got to be a sick person. Is much worse than what it is, even with the Caribbean camps for slaves. Those were breeding camps for slaves.
Yeah.
This is not a peaceful thing. For us to unite with our African ancestors and all Africans of the diaspora, from African Americans to the Africans of the Caribbeans, Jamaican, Haitians, Belizeans, whatever. All of us, we are the same people. We come from Southwest and Central Africans. We come from people who speak Niger-Congo languages, specific markers, specific human leukoantigens, definitely as a people. But they got us so fragmented in thought with all these divisions. They want to do this is the game they're trying to play. But in honesty, we're the same. I'm no different than any other West African that's over here. Game. So we want to separate ourselves from the history by calling ourselves Moor, Kemetic, and all these other things. But we want to, but it's nothing wrong with the Kemetic group because at least Kemet is Africa. Groups with the African history and African timeline or the African presence. They want to be something else. It's denial. It's low self-esteem and denial. That's what's going on, man. So at the time, as you said, the Americans were ran by white boys. Wasn't no Aborigines in power and wasn't no blacks in power. It was ran by white boys. That's just what was going on.
And this leads nicely into the next thing that we've discussed. And even with Taka Bay again, yeah, same point. You're trying to make a treaty with treaty breakers. Yeah, classic treaty breakers. So again, you know, what's your thinking on that? When you hear that somehow, you know, there's this treaty in place all these years on, as we've just classified now, and somehow if we identify with this thing, these white boys who, you know, have got all this power through the slaughter, through the chattel slavery, through so many different devices, yeah, they're going to give up the power. They're going to suddenly recognize our nation and allow our sovereignty somehow. What do you think when you hear that speak?
The white boy don't give. The white boy is known for breaking treaties. I mean, you still got to pay taxes on land in America. Taxes to a person that took land. What are you paying taxes for on free land? Boat no more without getting a license. You know, at one time people can ride boats from continent to continent. He's a hijacker. He's an invader. Taxes to a person that he's basically legally robbing you. He's a criminal. He's a gangster. So yes, he breaks contracts. Those contracts is beneficial for him. It has nothing to do with you. Come somewhere in gangster territory. What makes you think because you got a specific type of driver's license that says navigator or more, he's gonna respect you? In the first place. Don't you know that the French, Morocco, and all of North Africa? People don't know about that. The French colonized North Africa, and the French, British, and their cousins to the Spanish. What does he give a damn about a Moor for? He already embodied all the Native Americans when he came over here. This dude don't got no respect for himself to gangster your shit. So it is what it is, yo.
Most definitely. Listen, in regards to this treaty, getting back to this treaty, this bit of paper that they're claiming on. If we look at the treaty itself, yeah, would you say it's more on a premise of religious basis as well as white or cultural basis? So as you're saying, it was the Ottoman Empire that's in charge at the time. So was it more based on obviously that empire definitely being the main people in charge, as well as religion, would you say as well? Is this where the Islam thing kind of has to come into play? Do you have to identify with the Islam bit to even come under this so-called treaty?
Because Thomas Jefferson wasn't a Muslim. Thomas Jefferson was a Christian, and it was for trade. It wasn't a religious thing. It was based off trade, putting themselves in the game so they can import resources from one continent to the other. Religious tie. Thomas Jefferson didn't care about Islam, and the Sultan of Morocco didn't care about Thomas Jefferson not being a Muslim. You know, these are not religious zealots like certain, like in the Islamic Crusades. They wasn't thinking like that. It was about resources in exchange. And if a Moor say that, we need to study what's going on politically. This is a political treaty between countries, continents, trying to exchange to do, for resources, to import resources. So, I mean, if America wanted certain things from Morocco that's connected to, and the Moroccans have resources coming from Baghdad, it's all for market. Look up Morocco and America's peace treaty, and you can see what it was about. A Muslim country, it's a Christian country. And Morocco is an Islamic country, so it had nothing to do with religion at all. This is just groups of people trying to find their way to get resources. America was looking for independency, to be recognized, because at the time America was still in its developmental stage. It was a renegade Europeans trying to do their thing. Before the European established, the European Empire, or the European Union was established, even before the Council in Barcelona that happened in the late 1860s, the Berlin Council or whatever, in the 1860s, all this stuff was already independency. So Morocco was like, hey, independence, we'll be the first to recognize it. And if we do that, we'll always have a political tie with the United States. So this is why today, sitting in front of a Moroccan flag, because Morocco had a lot to do with recognizing the independency of the United States. It had nothing to do with religion, had nothing to do with I love black people, it had nothing to do with black people being in power. It was political. That's it. Just completely political.
And let's go back to the basics. When you hear the term Moor, because we talked about this again off air, what does that mean to you? Because again, with these conversations, it seems to take on different connotations. And again, we know you're a biologist, we know you've got a brain, you think politically. But so when you, and as a black person and someone who's connected to the continent, when you hear the word Moor, what does it mean? What does that mean for you?
Moor is a descriptive term. Moor, it means a lot of things. For example, at one time in northern Mauritania, you had a group of people that are called the Mari. The term also meant in Greco-Latin moros, which meant scorch. It's descriptive, an adjective to noun. It's a descriptive term. Exists in the early 7th century or 8th century AD and 711, or between the 8th century AD, 711 to the end, classified as Moor. Because you came from West Africa, whether it's Sub-Saharan or North Africa, it was a descriptive term. You practice Islam. You could have been Arabian. You can be from India. You could be from Senegal. If those white boys seen Muslims coming, they called them Moor. Now, we have to get into that the Berbers call themselves Moor. The Senegalese call themselves Moor. No. Now, later on, you got a few groups of people calling themselves Nar, who or Berberized Nar, and they live in Senegal. Major Congo speakers originally, who were Christian into the Islamic belief system, to a lot of the Berbers, and then they came back into Senegal on bullshit with the other indigenous groups. So you have this term Nar, and some of the Nars were snatched up too. So description, and we got to understand the history. Worked for Arabs. They were flunkies for Arabs. And a lot of the darker skinned Africans who were being imported from south to north, Sub-Saharan to north, were flunkies to Berbers. Arab or any other invader came, Berbers or Amazigh speakers had we had a peaceful nature with them with trade, because it was a salt and gold trade. Berbers had salt and the Sub-Saharans had gold. We had gold. So there's an exchange going on. Now I'm telling you this because I have a grandmother that's Algerian, who's Sahawi. So I know history of what's going on in the Sahara based off that and timeline and what's going on. So the Amazigh people, between us and them, between gold, we had the gold, the black Sub-Saharans had the gold, and the Amazigh had the salt. Later on is when the confusion starts to come in. Start instigating. It was already like slight tension, but it wasn't to the extreme. The term Moor is really descriptive. If you call yourself a Moor, you're free. Or if you call yourself a Moor, you're liberated. And it's a descriptive term. It's adjectives turned into nouns. I mean, it's like, look at that Moor. Moor can mean dark in the sense of skin tone. It don't have to be black. It don't have to be dark skin. You can be olive skin tone. You can be like some Latinos. Latinos is classified as intermediate brown. That's olive skin tone. You can be dark as space. You're classified as black or more. So these are terms. But did the Almoravid Empire in the 10th century or 11th century call themselves that? Did the General Tariq from Morocco call itself that? No. This is the descriptive term. The Europeans use it to identify coming. Those Moors are coming. And when you look at the artwork up there, you see blacks on horses. You see Arabs. All these people are classified as Moor. The actual name for Morocco was called Medi Kush. And before that, it had multiple names. So we got to be called Moor. It has nothing to do with being from Morocco. Mauritania been called a Moor. They even called the Portuguese Tanzania between Zanzibar. They was calling them Moors because they were Africans who practiced Islam. You know what I'm saying? So this was a title that Europeans used to describe people who practice Islam. Nothing special about the damn word. You know what I'm saying? Nothing special about it.
Well, just on a quick one, because again, another sidebar talk is, you know, there was people identifying themselves or Moorish kingdom going right back to the times of Kemet. What do you say on that one? Was there any set?
No such thing. No Moorish kingdom in Kemet. Closest thing to, now don't get it twisted, did go into Kemet because they were called Tamahu. The Libyans or Tamahu were Amazigh speaking people. They were, before the word Berber comes from the word Barbary. That's an insult. They don't call themselves that. That's an insight of title that was given to them by Europeans. Again, Amazigh or Amazigh speakers, they were called the Tamahu or the Libyans or the Tahinu. They were classified. They would have been, you know. Yeah, but far as Moorish, there is no ancient Moorish history because no one is using that name to describe themselves.
And
ancient Moorish history. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, Tamahu. Yeah, I've heard other people refer to white people as the Tamahu. So are we talking about the earliest kind of mixtures? Mulattoes, or are we talking about the earliest kind of Eastern European?
Tamahu linguistically, Tamahu spoke. Like it's called Amazigh or Tamazight.
Right.
Tamahu could look anyway. The Mediterranean were mixed with Southern European women, so they look lighter skinned. Or the mid-range looked like they were my color. And the ones further south could have been a little darker. It depends on the area. To be Amazigh or Berber, it's a lifestyle. The coloration of the colorization of Berber culture comes much later. Berbers could look any way. I can take you back to ancient Sicily cave art 9,000 years ago in Algeria, and you see the people that's there in Fezzen cave art. They're black people. You have Fulani there. You had the Amazigh there. The Proto-Amazigh, and then when you study the specific marker that Amazigh EM81, which is E1B1B1B or E1B1B1A lineage, it comes out of the Horn of Africa. It comes out of the Horn of Africa, just like the Egyptians mainly was EM78. Subplate of E1B1B, it comes out of the Horn of Africa. The same thing with West Africans or African Americans or Africans of the Caribbean. We're E1B1A predominantly. That comes out of the Horn of Africa, and it splits from EP2. So when it splits from EP2 out of the Horn of Africa, and it goes into these different directions, they become these different groups of people. Amazigh could look anyway, but the ones in the further north, they were mixing with Southern Europeans for a long time. We're talking about almost 20-something thousand years because you have a group of people called, for example, I'm gonna take you back in time. You have a group of people there, culture coming out of East Africa. It's between Egypt and Ethiopia and Eritrea around 20-something thousand years ago. Before that, in North Africa, you had predominant black sub-Saharans. They're called the Assyrian culture. The Assyrian culture stretched between 130,000 to 33,000 years ago. When the Middle Glacier period kicked in, a lot of these North Africans left and retreated and went south. You have the Halfling culture that starts to develop in the east. The Halfling culture migrates to Eritrea, Ethiopia, and the Horn and southern Upper Egypt and northern Sudan before going into the Sahara. Right. Coming from southern Europe and the northern Mediterranean, but at this time they're Neolithic Europeans. Europeans are not white yet. Europeans have darker skin. C245 mutation hasn't kicked in yet. That mutation kicks in between 6,000 to 8,000 years ago. Mutations that can cause lighter skin. But I'm talking about the main mutation that caused the fairer skin. Southern Europe wasn't even pale skin yet. So you have these immigrants or these refugees coming down from the Iberian Peninsula coming in the north. This is 22,000 years ago, and they're mainly women. So these halfling men are meeting up with these women in the far north, and they're creating a group of people called the Iberian Marusian culture. The Iberian Marusian culture starts to die out, and then after they die out, they're going like they're fading out. You have other groups of East Africans coming in. So you got to follow the timeline of East Africa and what's going on. I mean, North Africa and what's going on. Culture, the Iberian Marusian culture, other horn groups of people coming in bringing specific markers. A lot of these people spend time in the Sahara. So you start to see an EM81 start to go. This is before the EB38 subclade comes out of the Horn of Africa and becomes the specific E1B1A and goes into sub-Saharan Africa and then mingles with hunter-gathering and pygmy populations down there, which later evolved into the Niger-Congo speakers. So there's a lot of in and out going on when you follow the timeline. So Tamahu, north, they would have been lighter because they was mixing with more European immigrants, and the ones in the south would have been darker. But culturally African. It was completely African. It was a natural African culture. Completely.
All right. That's all. Going in. Again, big up to the chat room. It's all going off in there. Yeah, we got White Boy infiltrating the chat room, spreading his opinion, getting batted off by the chat, but it's all good. They're loving the information so far. That's what I like. And again, you know, the fact that there's white boys coming in to listen to this information says it all for me. Yeah. So you guys keep watching out there. Yeah. You keep watching and you might learn something about some true history. Yeah. Well, let's go away now from the Moor thing because you just went back in some history. So let me take a moment in time now to pick your brain on something separate. When you're talking about Black people, we often talk about our history, obviously predating slavery, back in the good old days, so to speak, of building these monuments. In your opinion, based on the biology and what you've studied so far, how long would you say, in your opinion, Black people have been here on the planet? Because again, we've had you talk about evolution and various parts, but in your head, how long do you think the Black man in his current form, the modern Black man, yeah, I mean, if there ever was such another thing, but how long are you thinking that we've been on this planet doing our thing?
Human. Black people have been here for 338,000 years. Yes. Before that, our early archaic forms, we've been here for almost 2 million years since Homo habilis, the first Homo genius within the taxonomy of Homo, of the taxonomy of the Homo species, which is Homo habilis, Homo ergaster, Homo erectus, and then Homo rhodesian and Homo heidelbergensis, branch of the human, which is us today, which is Homo sapiens sapiens. So, sapiens, which is us.
Hold on. Because this is where it's classic Ngozi now. So I just got to slow you down slightly. That's all. Because this is the bit that people want to hear, but this is the bit that people get lost in. Yeah. So just how many different archetypes are we talking about? Just give me the number of how many archetypes we're going through before we get to the modern human now, in your opinion.
Well, I'll start with Homo, which is Homo habilis, which is the first human. So you got up to like before you get to our branch of human today.
Right.
And a lot of them went extinct, but you got a long phase. But when that first Homo, when our ancestors started to leave out of the or rainforest, and you know, hair start to shed or whatever, melanin cortical receptor 1 kicks in, and the melanin or melanocytes start to come through the epidermis. You have 3 stratas: epidermis, dermis, right? So once it starts to come up, melanosomes, that chemical, which is driven by tyrosine, starts to abstract out. And once it abstracts out, that hormone melanosomes start to kick in the form of eumelanin. Homo or Homo habilis was dark skin. And then once it goes through these different layers or archaic species of hominids, by the time you get to us, black man, he's black. We don't even compare to Khoisan, because the Khoisan map, they live in zone 2, not even zone 1. So if you go into zone 2, people will get my color. This is the lightest. This right here, my skin tone, is the lightest a Homo sapien, probably with a gap, and before other mutations kicked in. And you probably had people when they migrate out of Africa, but before that, Homo sapien is blue black. He's black like this. He's dark skinned, highly pigmented human being.
Yeah. No, it's the most efficient form to do what you need to do and transmit light cold frequencies from your environment. So I'm with you on that. But you see now, again, I'd be amiss if I didn't pull you right back to the shedding of the hair, because you know that's what we want to hear about, this great H. Yeah, this is the thing that we need clarification on. Yeah, explain this great ape, because again, a lot of people, as soon as they hear it, as you said, they don't want to hear it. They're thinking monkey. They're thinking the usual evolutionary theory, or the So clear that up for us now. Well, we'll explain this great ape, yeah, because I've heard you and I've been waiting for the explanation. We've built many times, so go just quickly on that one.
Well, a gorilla isn't a monkey. A chimpanzee isn't a monkey. A orangutan isn't a monkey. A bonobo chimp isn't a monkey. We're all great apes. Great apes don't have a tail. Cortex, eye socket, pancreas, bone marrow, levels of bipedalness, tooth fusion. You can see how me, a chimpanzee, a gorilla, and a bonobo, and an orangutan are all part of this great ape family. Of how we are, how we're designed. A cerebral cortex is not as complex as ours. Cortex isn't as complex as ours, but if you look at the brain cave, and you look at the rectangular eye socket based off the foci, you can see that the setting position phenotypically matches with ours. And also that chromosome 2 fusion at the base, we got 46 chromosomes, they got 48. But if you go through chromosome 2 fusion, it's come together with us as a species, which equates to 46 today. So with that being said, all of us, which is the Homo sapien, human, orangutans, and bonobo chimps are all classified as great apes. A great ape isn't a monkey. 27 million years, you will see the split between old world monkeys and new world monkeys, or old world apes and new world apes. And then when you go back further in time, 50-some million years, you find the first primates start to develop. And the first primates, Achilles man, he's found in China, and the other one's found in Montana. Species even developed. So the further you go back in time, a connection with other species. Right here, this circle is classified as great ape. Homo sapien is its own type of great ape. A gorilla is its own type of great ape. I'm not saying I'm a gorilla, because I'm not. I'll make you a gorilla.
Clean it up. You get me?
We are of great apes like the gorilla is and the chimpanzee. There are differences. And we develop in our own way, they develop in their own way. Commonality means that we have a common ancestor that's split and went to different directions. So you have certain features that's totally different than theirs, and they have features that's different than yours.
All right. Well, listen. The chat room's going crazy right now. They got their own opinions, and again, it's our brother Ngozi joining us, giving us this rundown of the information. Yeah, and I urge you, if you hear something you don't know, you don't agree, go and research. That's what it's about. You can watch 1,000 YouTube videos, but it's about you going out there and doing your own research, yeah, making this your truth, yeah. And that's all I can say on that one, yeah. Trust me. Brother, what you been up to? What are you going to be doing future tense? Because I know it's coming up to that time frame soon enough for you to leave us, so just give us a rundown. What is Ngozi doing with himself these days, and where can we find you? And definitely, people, you're gonna find him again on Black Eyes TV coming up soon. Yeah, but go in, my brother.
Hey, well, lately, man, it's been working in schooling, man, and working in schooling, man. And I've been focusing on this book that I've been writing in and out, off and on for years, and I'm trying to get it out. But lately, it's been working in schooling and living, man. But outside of that, man, I'm here. You can catch me at Amir Quantum on Facebook, and you can also catch me do Instagram sometimes. I'm not really as active as I used to be. Team Osiris is the group that I created. That's the study group, and it's me over there. I created it just to as a defense or to go against certain teachings that's out there. And I got my brother Kansu that's there. I got my brother Kufu. I got it's a few brothers on there, that good brothers that think scientifically, that's doing their thing. So Team Osiris is really like on a front line right now, really putting in a lot of work. If you really want to catch Ngozi, most of the time I'm in the background, or doing a lot of stuff. But we definitely on the horizon. But if you want to reach out to me directly, you can catch me at Amir Quantum on Facebook, and reach me through Team Osiris, which is the horizon, and that's pretty much it, man. But lately it's just been just working and surviving, brother.
No doubt, one day at a time. And listen, right now, people, we're joined by one of his teammates, one of his compadres, Brother Consul. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir, brother. Peace, peace.
Let me
peace,
turn
brother.
you up.
Peace, Black Eye.
Let me turn you up on that mic. Talk to us now, brother.
Hey, brothers.
Yes, brother.
Pardon the body 1 second. Man, I thank you for allowing me to come on the show. I'm gonna rotate. I thank y'all. And I'll come on here next time, man, and keep it coming in, man. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. And Brother Consul, man, get it in, brother.
That's what's up, King.
Yeah, definitely. Much love, Ngozi. Yeah, we will definitely see you soon, brother. We'll talk.
All right, bro.
Yes, General Consul. You got the link.
Man, I finally got the link, man. We having bad weather.
In the other chat room there, just talking the whole crap. It's like a war in there.
Man, it keeps you on your toes, though.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny how things can be at times when people don't take in information and don't take it in the right perspective of it.
Yeah.
And it's hard when some people have a form of a belief.
Oh, man. It can send you beyond common sense, man. It can send you beyond logic, rather. I don't even like that term, common sense. But, yeah, it can send you beyond logic, bro.
Consul, I just want you to give the general public to an understanding of where you're from and your perspective of how you see things in your ways of life.
Well, I mean, I tend to I do appreciate science. I appreciate science when it comes to discovering and understanding physical nature. Mm-hmm. But I tend and also do appreciate mysticism. I don't necessarily adhere to any religion, but I also know that it's a byproduct of humanity. It's a social institution. So it's inevitable that something religious or something like it is going to be developed in humanity. I tend to deal with logic, being able to be self-sufficient, self-governed, thinking rationally. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't adhere to being able to make a claim. Let's say we're in a debate format. You make a claim and you don't substantiate it with a working illustration. Well, that applies every day in life. We do certain things that we don't have necessarily knowledge of, but we're programmed to do it, so we do it, like going to work. We do that every day because the motivation is survival. So if somebody says they're against you, well, you need to show me why they're against you. What's the motivation for them to do it? And why are you putting up with it? These kind of things even apply in history, like looking at history and saying, hey, Jesus walked across water at such time. Well, tell me why. What was the motivation? Why do you have to walk across water? I'm going to be the one that's going to ask logical questions so I can deduce properly, because I'm going to be conscious of what's being inducted into me, what's being induced towards me, and I have a right to discern it. So I tend to look at things from a more logical aspect.
Yeah, because as we were talking about in the mystical realm, because one thing that I've realized is that a lot of people, once they're in some form of organization, they tend to demonize a lot of things and not having a great understanding of what the entirety is about. So I'm like as we were talking previous shows and things like that, where we was going through the Freemasons and Masonry and understanding its entirety, because what we tend to do is, because of what we see on the social media and YouTube and whatsoever, demonize something that we don't have an understanding of. Right. So I just, because you know quite a lot on that scenery, I just wanted you to give us a kind of a breakdown of understanding.
Yeah, Masonry is a fraternity. That's the first thing. Masonry is a fraternity. You do have affiliate or auxiliary bodies of social groups called auxiliary bodies, which are Eastern Stars, the Templars. These are auxiliary bodies. And Masonry started because of a need to create a network of people that have one common goal in order to complete a task, be it public or private. And so Masonry is a modality of society, and it's a group of people that carry the same agenda. And in carrying that same agenda, they tend to be secretive. Masonry is a secret thing when it comes to intent. It is. But then there are other connotations that are false. This term Illuminati, it's really talking about an isolated group of people. And the reason why they were that way, or illuminated people, was because of their downtrodden history. And those are Bavarians. When it came to assimilating to the strife of Europe, the European people came along and tried to break down the, the social political system of the Bavarians. They went into secret hiding and started establishing their governments, and then started influencing other governments as well to this way of thought, and fighting the major dialectic with a minor dialectic. Just like Hegelian dialectic, just like Buddhism, Shiva, these are all dialectics. Mm-hmm. That's what the Illuminati alluded to. But Masonry in its totality is a fraternity. That's exactly what it is.
Okay, so I want to explain to people, like in the forms of the degrees, like compared to the education, we go through certain educational system, and when they go to university, they get a degree, right? But in the Masonry, they go much more further in that entirety, because a lot of people, when I say to them, "Oh, you've only got one degree," when you go to university or go to college,
right?
But if you have the entirety of understanding the school of thought, then it increases your mindset. Just give us a little breakdown on that.
Sure. Masonry is a degreed system because it replicates school. It replicates a learning system. The degrees serve a dual purpose. One is literal, it is knowledge-based. And then two, it is emblematical. and symbolical. So it serves kind of a dual nature. Masonry is founded in philosophy. And in the philosophical interpretation of life, Masonry adds these degrees to represent certain degrees of knowledge, of a body of work. Basically, 7 liberal arts and sciences that encompass society, which is the trivium and quadrivium. A lot of this information, and most people already know this because you can find it on YouTube. You can find it everywhere. This is basic knowledge. These are things that was done in the medieval times to determine if a person was worthy to be initiated. There are different ethnic representations of Masonry that also use a degree system. When we go into Western Africa, when we go into the Sahel, the Maghreb region in Southern Africa, we see the same modalities in initiation, tribal initiation. This is where Masonry was founded from, because the ruling class at that particular time, which were at that time colonialization, which gave way to the birth of modern Masonry or Freemasonry, because they would see the structure of these tribal people from the chief to the chiefess or the queen and on down. They would see that structure and see how that was done, and then they would assimilate it to their culture, European culture. The most popular form of Masonry is the European Masonry that comes through the Scottish Rite of England, that propagated certain guilds of specific people that had specialized.
Because just 1 second, because you know that the guilds, right? Because over here, like we have, when we go through college or we go through certain education, we got a thing called city and guilds.
Yes.
So I just wanted a quick breakdown on that city, on that guilds thing, because that people can understand it.
Yes, a guild is what would be a prerequisite to a Mason, meaning that you would join a guild in a preparatory fashion to then get involved in Masonic fraternization.
That's why there's an actors guild, isn't there?
Yes, the actors guild, it's a similar thing. It's almost like a union. It's almost like a union. And then that union would then propagate a apprenticeship. From that apprenticeship, you would go into the actual learning system. Because the Masonry has a theological system. It's the theology based on a philosophical understanding.
Okay. Richie, is there anything you want to ask?
Listen, going back to the original tenets of the Masonry, the brotherhood, the helping out and the passing on of knowledge, you know, again, like just reinforce for the people, because again, they've heard so much, in my opinion, connotations to the Masonry avenue, whether it be world domination or whatever. So just reinforce for the people exactly what was the purpose of that original Masonry system that we put in place ourselves.
Okay. And that's a very good, I'm glad you put it in that perspective. There could possibly be, and I'm not going to discount this, there can be a group of Masons that have an ideology of world domination, because Masonry is not a universal thing to everyone. There are different jurisdictions and rituals of Masons, and they're very indicative to ethnic influence. I'm an African-based Mason, so we deal in natural sciences and African ontology, the psychological and philosophical disposition of the African mind, and finding proper psychological motives within African ontology. So we look for psychiatric remedy and understanding of our psychological disposition, because ethnically, we have dealt with a diaspora that has changed our psychological makeup, the perception of who we are. Well, most tribes of people, let's say most races, we use race in layman's terms, have been subjugated to their own form of diaspora, whether on a major or minor level. So what Masonry teaches is logic. and formulating things properly so that you're able to reason in this particular order, inductively, deductively, and abductively. Modern Masonry, which has taken the term Freemasonry, is an American term by way of England. Everybody understand that? When I say American, I'm speaking a dialect of England. Its foundation is found in England by way of actually the Scottish Rite. That gave way to other rites. Now, when I say rite, I mean rituals of passage. Rituals that are indicative to a person going from one degree to the second degree. So you have Scottish rites, you have York Rite, you have the Orients, which are Oriental Rite. You have the Prince Hall Masons coming out of the antebellum period, which supposedly were Black Masons. And then you have International Masons. All of these have different rites. So when we talk about the Masons that deal in world domination, very well that could be. There could be Masons that throughout history formulated an ideal that they wanted to be a conglomerate and control their surroundings. I can't say that because Masonry is comprised of human beings that have their own agenda. But the root core foundation of Masonry is all about psychological development, keeping a sound mind, and maintaining a strong brotherhood in doing it. And because we are subject to one another, and by nature we harm one another, it is kept secret. So that whatever agenda a particular group of people have, it can be carried out and completed. It's just like if you are Black, let's say for Black people, I'm an African. I'm an American African. I understand my diasporic situation. If I had plans to regain my freedom and my status, would I put it out there in the public? No. But when you see someone do that, it makes you wonder, is that COINTELPRO? Why would you tell your plans to the world? That's the mindset of a Mason. And that's where you get the secrecy from. No, I'm not going to speak of it, and only a Mason will know a Mason. Certain signs and symbols, certain way that we talk and walk. Another Mason would be able to determine that.
And again, we've seen a lot of portrayals. I never forget watching, what's the movie now? It's a slavery type movie. It's gone from my head now. But there's a point in it where, that's it, Rosewood. That's what it's about. That's the movie. Where they, this setups happen. They're going on this rampage in the town. And I think there's a part in it where there's a white guy, he's on the run, and somehow he bucks these two Black slaves who are minding their own, doing their thing. And he kind of flashes the ring to them and tells them they must help him as a brother. Again, this is the Freemason we're talking about, that we're used to seeing when we see this so-called code that supersedes color. Is that the case? Or are we saying that, the modern day Masonry is a white thing? Because again, a lot of people have that confused on whether or not there is a Black intervention on the higher levels of Freemasonry now we're talking. So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, my opinion on that is that's social political. And under the establishment of a geomilitary political complex. That would be prevalent when you look at that time period. When you made reference to, or made an analogy towards the movie Rosewood. The motivation for the continental African and then the Americanized African at that time, which started to outnumber the continental African 4-1. By the time that period came, which is toward the Civil War period, the American African outnumbered the continental African. They were bred out, meaning they started breeding in with English people. German in particular, outside of those that established the 13 colonies. The motivation was serfdom, because they were given, those slaves were told, hey, if you come join the Federalist movement, which is your modern day federal government today, if you join the Federalist movement, we will give you your papers, your serf papers, and you will be able to traverse throughout the land without fear of kidnapping. Because slavery was still prevalent, But if you had your papers to identify you as a citizen, then you were not put in slavery. You could not, it would be against the law because you were technically property of the United States government by joining and becoming a soldier in the Federal War. So when the Federalists from the North, i.e. the cavalry, would fight those Confederates that were in the South, that were against the Federation or the establishment, the anarchy, monarchy. Those were anarchists in the South. And they were displaced people that were fighting against their indentured servitude. Because remember, the Europeans were indentured servants too that came to America, but they were paid. And as being paid, they were levy a tax. However, the continental African was indentured, but it was a lifetime contract with servitude with no pay. They were paid through their administrators, i.e. slave masters. We started calling them slave masters in modern time, but they were considered administrators. And as they ran their plants, i.e. plantation, to produce byproducts like cotton, alcohol, tobacco, these servants were given room and board, and they were also fed. So that being the case, that's what started the Civil War. And so the motivation to leave the chattel slavery status for an African was to go north. And in going north, that's where your Masonic guilds were. That's where the ruling class had adopted Freemasonry out of Africa, because the modality of Masonry, the methodology of Masonry is an African form. It is the original form of what we call ontology, okay, which is the study of human psychology. And that's where that started. That's where that started from. So the motivation in the American diasporic history of the Africans, this is why we adopted Masonry, because Masonry would protect Africans from prosecution in America. So you have to think about the neurological disposition of a slave at that particular time in America, as opposed to the proto-colonialization that is found in continental Africa. The neurological dispositions would be different, because I'm a byproduct of tribes that would have normally not seen one another ever on Africa. Africa was never one continent, one sociological construct. It's over 2,000 languages in Africa, and it's always been that way. And certain tribes did not commiserate with other tribes at all. Some were quite racist toward each other. When we look at the terminal definition of racism. So when you make this specific and disambiguation of the American captive, it was purely commercial. It was purely taxation under a geopolitical military complex in order to produce a byproduct, so that trade and military would be reinforced, i.e. chattel slavery, why we punch a clock every day to this day. England's modality stretched from those islands that we call England into the British Isles, which are truly Anglos and Saxons. Those are the tribes. The Anglos and Saxons took it upon themselves to become human traffickers because they created a commonwealth. That commonwealth then spilled over into America after the transatlantic slave trade, and they imposed the same modality. But those were indentured servants that were doing that. So Masonry was out for us. We didn't necessarily choose Masonry because as Africans, we did not call it Masonry. You see Masonry in Ifa from Yoruba people. You see Masonry in Palomayambi from people of Congo. You see Masonry in Vodun. You see Masonry in Gullah Geechee people that inhabit northern and southern Carolina of America. You see Masonry in all of those in Haiti and Dominica. You see Masonry that has been infused into certain religious precepts. So you see all of these motifs that are consistent with Masonry when you actually study and understand Masonry. You'll see that. Now, I'm not sorry if I was too wordy, but I wanted to.
No.
You asked an excellent question.
You're covering the bases, brother, and this is what we want. We want proper information out on these subjects, and the chat room's loving it. And again, I want to say to the people, thank you for tuning in. I want to big up Mo from Dagger Squad tuning in. She's bigging you up, Konsu. Everything is everything. Yeah, big up to you as well. Shame the devil again. Melanin. Yeah, big up. Ask those questions. And one of the questions that they're asking quickly is, why is there a Masonic building in every small and large town? Is that the center of power? Or is that the way power is distributed?
Yes, because Freemasonry from a British perspective. So you're going to see that in educational institutions because the liberal arts is indicative to educational learning. And it's funny, and you brothers will attest to this, coming from the UK, liberal arts is a basic means of education for you lot. Real basic. But it is as advanced for people that are byproducts of the transatlantic slave trade here in America. The liberal arts aren't taught as liberally here because the indentured servants that were the ruling class here did not propagate to the 7 liberal arts publicly because they were administrators and they did not feel like they wanted to disseminate that freely. And they made it a fraternal benefit to learn liberal arts and sciences. You do see it at a university level where you learn the 7 liberal arts, but the liberal arts is what propagates this particular society that we live in today, which is a British and parliament government. Now in America as well, Britain is a little bit more under a monarchical system, but we still are a geopolitical military complex. That started in the advent of war within its own structure, i.e. the Civil War. So once those things started, we started creating modalities with that in the Masonic system. And it did affect the educational system because the educational system is a Masonic modality. 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. You have kindergarten, which is your entered apprenticeship. All of this is a Masonic modality.
Yeah, Consul. So I want to ask, right, in its form and entirety of the masonry system, if we're uprising our people, how would you perceive or see how to utilize the tools of masonry to uplifting our people as a whole?
Man, y'all asking some good questions, man. I normally don't have to go this deep, so this is awesome. Well, in America, it's a little different globally, but I'm sure you have different icons people that were iconic that represent the same thing. Here, I would use 2 people, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois would coin a phrase that is called double consciousness, where we are promoted, Black men particularly, to either become one of three things: a criminal, a athlete, or a rapper, let's just say. We'll talk about the music industry. If you notice, as Black men, we're pushed in that direction. And we substantiate that as being successful as we psychologically think through the eyes of our oppressor. Booker T. Washington, on the flip side, would talk about independent and group economics, being able to establish your progression through independence. Well, both of them believed in a republic or a Republican form of government, which would give way to what people would call the modern day bourgeoisie, which is your successful Black person, a serf. A good example is a good analogy would be the movie 12 Years a Slave. This is when you had slaves that were well-to-do, serfs, but they were still slaves. They were well-to-do, they were independent, they had their own living, and had their own means. Solomon Northup was a very successful musician. His wife was a physician, and they lived quite well. Underneath that, he did not know that it was actually a human trafficking system still apparent. As a matter of fact, he was never even subject to it. He would see slaves from time to time, and it would take him aback. but he never understood the ramifications of it until he became one. And for 12 years, his whole world was changed because he was subject to his history. So that is going on to this day. A lot of us, black people, modern day black people, have not been directly affected by racism and white supremacy. So it puts us in a double consciousness, a false consciousness. So what Masonry does is Masonry teaches to look at an entire scope of a thing, not from just one ethnic perspective, but from a global perspective. And understanding that we as human beings have had the nature to attack humanity, not just one group of people. So now once you understand that, you're able to find the weaknesses and the problems within your own ethnic paradox. Because trust me, if a white man was on this show right now and he said, hey, I love my race. I believe in my race. I'm gonna stand up for my race. My race has a purpose and a meaning and a history, and I love who I am. Now that person didn't have a say in who he was, but this is a white man. What would we be calling him? I ask either of you. If he came on here saying that.
We got white boy in the chat room right now, yeah. Getting torn up by everybody, yeah. That's the funniest thing. He's been in since Ngozi's been on, coming out with these sideways comments, but yeah. Quite
if that white man was doing that, he would be called a racist.
That's it.
But he's an ethnic propagandist. He believes in his race. He believes in the perpetual success of his race. Meanwhile, because we are indoctrinated with double consciousness, we feel that it is wrong to be vehemently supportive of your race and your race only. Other ethnic groups don't have this problem. This is why they can come as immigrants and dominate in other places. People say, oh man, I cannot wait to move back to Africa, Americans. But Africans can't wait to move to America. It is the psychological disposition of diasporatic Africans that don't know how to create a cognitive understanding of your present day situation. And we are in a byproduct of British rule. The Anglos and the Saxons have had a very long history of enslavement and subterfuge through military political complexes. This is what the British Army was. And they would sit out vassals. And Masonry teaches you how to look at things from a global perspective. Basically, modern day feudalism. When we look at the feudal system, we see where the king, queen, duke, duchess, count, countess, who creates duchies and counties that these political people would administrate and propagate. Now, in certain school systems, like an organic British school system, you are taught feudalism from the ground up. But in America, it's not taught that way. Because we're in a different environment. But this is what America is, a byproduct of a feudal system. So Masonry helps you compartmentalize these things, add the proper terminology, and keep them in their proper perspective. And we're talking about organic Masonry. Now, I'm not talking about once it branches off into different abductive things, people reasoning abductively, because there are some Masons that have a warped sense of understanding. But no doubt, Masonry is an African ontology system. It's an African ontological system that deals in the psychology of the African mind, because it was the African mind that formulated it.
Yeah, like in the formation of what Prince Hall did, and organizing organized people before religion. Could you see that kind of system working for what we're doing today?
Yes, I can see it working, but it needs to be reformed.
In what way? How would you reform it? What your preference on it?
Number one, we have to take into credit what we're doing right now. The political socialization of African peoples is extremely vital. A show like this will bridge the gap. Imagine if you had a pragmatic demagogue like Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or Patrice Lumumba that had access to the internet. it would be phenomenal. It would be the
It'd be
potential. So we are actually in the position of where our ancestors wanted us to be. Because now we have an ability to think of a Pan-African construct or an Afrocentric construct that is reformed to modern day modality neurologically. Because we're in a different psychological disposition than our ancestor counterparts. Me and you, we're relatively young to the system of oppression due to diaspora. Me and you are relatively young, but we're generations apart, you understand? If I don't know what it's like to see any of my ancestors hung from a tree. I never saw that. You know, I'm glad I never did. I don't know where that would put me psychologically. To see my father castrated or my mother raped, or to have dogs released on me in water hoses. The majority of us today that are living have not experienced that. You have a few that are older, possibly from their 50s on up, but those people are dying. So as we evolve as a people, those stories are going to become more and more ancient and less relevant. So because we have social platforms, we can maintain that relativity. Because think about 3000 BC. We've lost the effects of 3000 BC. It's just too old. All it has is a historic value, but it doesn't have an applicable means of progressive value to today. I can't look at the pyramids and say, you know what, that's going to help me today. I can look at the pyramids and see what we accomplished under those conditions and under that modality.
Well, let's be clear, let's be clear on that point, Again, because people are going to jump on your words. I know this already, and they're going to say like, well, you don't give a fuck about the pyramids, you don't care about what we did. Just clarify again what you said, because it's important to distinguish between looking at something as an achievement and looking at something as something that you can take as an applicable working map. But sorry, bro. Talk on that.
I absolutely love the pyramids. My name is Kansu, Sheshmo Amun, and I was given that by my elder. So it's a Kemetic name, okay, an Egyptian name. So that's not the issue. The issue is knowing how to properly induce, deduce, and abduct the functionality of the pyramids to be rational. Like if I go to Egypt right now, where do the pyramids reside? Let's say the pyramids of Giza. Where are they located? What state?
Egypt.
Egypt. Who is the ruling class in Egypt?
The Arab.
The Arab. How many continental Africans are doing the best they can to get it to Egypt, to get to those pyramids?
I could not tell you. Not enough.
The Somalians, the Kenyans, the Ethiopians, maybe the Mali. What Bantu speakers are saying, man, I got to get to Egypt? Because Africa is 13 million square miles, and we don't know how to fathom that. 13 million square miles is not fathomable with the human mind. There are over 5 different climate changes in Africa, 2,000 languages, and thousands of tribes that never had to subscribe to Kemet, but ancestrally they were tied to Kemet. Right. Because Kemet is an amalgamation of Africa. It's not the end of Africa. It's the amalgamated history of Africa on a whole. But once the European felt that Egypt was valuable and dug it up, then we became Afrocentrics to Kemet, instead of dealing with Kemet as if we would deal with Africa. Because we are a multicultural people, Africans. We stop at skin color. That's what stunts us. We stop. But Africans, we take on all phenotypical traits because we're the oldest. The San people, the Khoisan people, take on an Asiatic appearance. But they're the oldest people. You follow?
I'm with you.
But we look at the world through our oppressor's eyes. We have to have a large nose, thick lips, and dark skin, or we're not truly African. If you're light skinned, you're not African enough. because you're mixed. The last pure African was 10,000 years ago. And they weren't completely a pure African just because of geological displacement. So when I make statements like that about the pyramids, let me make this abundantly clear. I'm unapologetically Black, but I'm also conscious and intelligent of my history. I'm cognate of my history because the pyramids are an accomplishment of African peoples. But why aren't we building them today? We could be building them today. If they're functional and they have those means, why aren't we doing that? We're under the impression, number one, that we were globally unified. We were not. But we were harmonious in our state, if you study the world history. So these are the things that I'm saying from a Masonic perspective, that my objective is Black people. I don't care about the European paradigm. I don't care about the Asian paradigm. It's Black people. But Black people have to embrace who they are in order to repair who they are. We are byproducts of diaspora. Every single major ethnic group has a diaspora. We tend to think, do you realize that, I don't know how it is in the UK, but we're all the same. Most people think the slave narrative starts with Black folks. And most people think that the slave narrative is that we were weak, timid, and white man just came in and whooped our ass. That's not true. There was over 500 slave revolts in America when slavery touched down. We did not take this going. We did not just take this. There was major wars going on with the European as the European attempted to do that. There were also political statuses that some of our leaders gave us up as slaves as well, because they had to survive in a political environment. That was called colonialism and imperialism. You see the byproducts of imperialism today. Look at China. China, the Orients created imperialism. Look at the political coup that's going on in Zimbabwe. Look what's going on in Liberia. What are those byproducts of? Political encampments based on social disposition, a casting system. If all the leaders in Africa came together, we have billionaires coming out of Africa that are African, coming out of Africa. They would just say, hey, we're going to kick all the white folks out and all the Asians out, and we're only going to take Black people in. They haven't done it. Because Africa is politically entrenched just like any other continent. So we have to look at things from a rational point of view. And then that way we can be tacticianary as we do things for our liberation. So Masonry just creates a logic precept, a thinking precept, and being able to compartmentalize things based on their terminal status. And a lot of times, especially in the Black conscious community, people are not terminally responsible. They're like, I know you guys have seen this. Maybe you have Muslim, but he doesn't talk Islam. You'll have a Muslim that sounds like a Christian. That's a psychological issue there. If you're a Muslim, then talk like a Muslim. If you are an atheist, then talk like an atheist. Because the way that you communicate is indicative of your neurological cognition. How you think, how you speak, how you write is how you think. This is very, very important. And it's not a coincidence that illiteracy is rampant in Black communities all over the world. Being illiterate is a serious issue. Serious, serious issue. It affects our ability to assimilate to a culture that some of us didn't ask to be in.
No, most definitely. I agree with that totally. And again, this is why the key elements was stripping culture from the culture, was the language, the writing systems, because of what you just described. It peels you back as a people and it leaves you bare bones. So now there's nothing to draw strength from. Because as you're saying, every race has had their moments of adversity, but their culture is still intact enough for them to go back and draw strength from their achievements, from their language, from their world perspective, from their own people. which again is what we're lacking, what we're missing. So again, when we're under pressure, especially as you said in diaspora, there's nothing to draw strength from. This is where we end up in the church, the mosque, the temple, seeking answers and identities from places that just don't make sense. Yeah. Ricky, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm just running through certain things behind the scenes. But yeah, on its entirety of understanding most of what we're trying to do and collaborating and working together and understanding the old system. Because as we do these shows called UK USA Link Up, it's understanding how we can use certain and utilize systems to able to work together, regardless of our ideologies or where we're coming from, whether we're Muslim, Christian, whatever. I just wanted to understand in your entirety that you're going through the masonry, yeah? What other aspects would you say that has helped you to move forward?
Actually, mysticism has really helped me progress. For me, it has gave me a perspective on religion and how it affects us on a day-by-day basis. I don't have a problem with religion. I have a problem with the perpetual ignorance that's promoted in it. I've grown to look at religion as a social construct. It is a social institution in human culture. It is a culture byproduct. And when I got into, or I grew an affinity for mysticism, it gave me an inner understanding as to why we do what we do. Sometimes we formulate things out of fear. Sometimes we formulate things out of ignorance. And I look beyond the person and I get to the core of the issue. The who, the what, the when, the where, the why, the how. And that has really helped me understand human beings. Because if I want to help my people, I grew up in a very oppressive environment in Chicago, Illinois. It was very dangerous and very oppressive. I had to grow and establish a deep love for my Black people and look beyond their mistakes, because that's still my family. But we rob, steal, and kill from one another. Case in point, like a Umar Johnson and a Tariq Nasheed. Absolutely ridiculous that two individuals that are pragmatic and very influential are arguing over things that will not progress us as a people. And they're not cognizant of that problem. And one of them happens to be a psychologist and knows that this is a condition that hurts our people. And so that motivated me and put me in a position to where I had to become more of an observer and understand science and understand the sociological issues to our psychological disposition, and realize that in order to establish a true Pan-African reform and Afrocentric reform requires that we let go of our preconceived notions of each other and we stop looking at things through anti-Blackness. We stop looking at things through our oppressors' lenses. One thing about European people is that they are racist, all of them. And some of them are not intentionally racist, but they're hereditary racist. They benefit from a system that was developed by their ancestors. Most Blacks, all Blacks, have inferiority complexes, which affects their ability to be stable with an identity. We have identity crisis syndrome going on with us, an identity crisis that is systematic, because we're quick to say light skin, dark skin Black, rich Black, poor Black. If you're a Black person that makes 10 million, you're part of the Illuminati. We create ideals that separate us as a people. However, other ethnic groups, they agree to disagree, but they will agree completely to dominate another group of people other than themselves. But they'll agree to disagree for the betterment of their people. So my thing is, I'll agree to disagree with a Black Hebrew Israelite if I know that it's going to progress my people. I'm not going to pick apart that black man because he believes in an ideology I don't.
Mm.
What I will do is reinforce his blackness, and then we have to unify on one common need, and it should be survival. So this is why I stated earlier that black Pan-Africanism and Afrocentrism needs to be reformed to a global modality under social constructs, just like Hangouts, Facebook, Twitter. These things, this is an element that can bring us together. I'm in the United States. You guys are in the UK right now, and we're doing something phenomenal. If we go back 40 years, 20, it wouldn't have been thought of. People, Kwame Nkrumah, he would be a click away, and we could talk to Patrice Lumumba. We are really taking this for granted. So when you have efforts and attempts like this is why, even though I came late, I had to show up. These kind of things right here is black power. This is what we need. We need to be exposed to a universal experience. I need to be taught and learn things from you, and I reciprocate. Because we are byproducts of socialists. And that's just, that's what really put me in the position that I'm in today, is understanding these things.
Yeah, someone asked in the group chat, what degree would you say you are?
I'm in the 33rd degree, and I'm also a Shriner.
Okay. Someone said, how does the practice and where does he get his Freemason knowledge?
How does the practice? I don't know.
How do you practice?
How do you?
You said, how do I practice?
Yeah.
I attend what you would call meetings, lodge meetings, gatherings on a scheduled basis. That's how I practice.
Okay. So, in understanding on the terms of forms of trade and understanding, because one of the main principles that I've known from Masonry is charity. Give us some insight on that forms of charity, of how it works.
Yeah, charity for Masonry is a means of integrating the community and being an asset to your environment. Charity has always been a precept of any organization, if they plan on being influential in the area that they're in. That doesn't mean that the intent is good, though.
Yeah, because that's why I went to
the colonies came with charity too. The Africans, they came with bullets, they came with sugar. They was, oh, hey, how you doing? Now could you get on this boat? We got some work for you to do. So charity is based on the perception and intelligence of the individuals receiving it. You could be fattening up the pig for slaughter. So let's be clear on that, because all free Masonic organizations did not have good intent. Mm-hmm. Remember, like I said before, you have the European influence Masonry that was on an agenda of perpetuating their status in a caste system. That was their agenda, and they happened to be Masons. And as Masons, they maintained their dominance through political social control. Because slavery, the motivation for slavery had nothing to do with the color of your skin. It was the need to dominate you so you can create social political byproducts. We call them jobs today.
Yeah, and specializing, as we always say, the architect of that specific job.
Yes.
Which was your personal secret.
Yes.
But how would you say how do you feel that the European, in a European perspective, how do they go into the forms of the Constitution? How would they want something done?
The U.S. Constitution?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, the U.S. Constitution, again, is an amalgamation of independent laws. The Constitution was founded on the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights dealt with the humane treatment of all peoples, which was then standardized into amendments to those Bill of Rights. Those two books of law were then ratified into different articles. Well, all of these things had to be amalgamated and standardized. So what happened? They constituted, mixed all of those laws together into a standing body of law. That standing body of law was de jure, meaning that it was local and direct to the people that were inheritably benefited the rights. Well, those people were the colonists that were directly benefiting from it. And they clearly put in there that, hey, the black people are byproducts of that. So they are merely chattel slaves. So they would only get 3/5 of the law because they would not be counted as people. It wasn't about that they were 3/5 of human beings. They very well knew that we were humans. But we were encumbered into 3/5 of the benefits of being under a constituted amalgamated government. So the U.S. Constitution is highly Masonic. Highly Masonic. Masons created them. But type of Mason? All Masons are not the same. That's like saying everybody in Africa is the same. They're not. The Mindi know nothing about the Ashanti. And if they do, they're not going to connect with them. The Mindi will deal with the Mindi. So when you're dealing with that particular group of Masons who adopted a Masonic structure, they used the Masonic structure to establish dominance. The Masonic structure is standalone. You see the Masonic structure in all modalities of social institutions.
All right. We're going in today. It's been a nice show. Again, for those who thought they was going to get to Haka Bay today, forget that. He flopped. He'll be back with us another time. But instead, we've had our brother Ngozi going in earlier. And then we...
Oh, man, I missed it, man. I was so mad.
I know. He was breaking down the Moorish treaty. That's what we was talking about earlier first. Yeah.
What's your opinion on that Moorish treaty, Konsu?
That's it.
The Moorish treaty served its purpose when it did. It's suspended. Been suspended since we have been opted to go to war and we agreed to be part of NATO. Then that was going to suspend any treaty anyway. So I look at it as a historical piece. It cannot be enacted today. It's irrational. I look at the terminology more. That is a construct of another group of people that I'm not part of. That is from Roman and Grecian influence. That was saying more is what those people were calling us. We didn't call ourselves that. We were tribes and we were specific groups of people and we knew who we were. We just didn't go around calling every African that had a skin color Moor. Hey, Moor. We weren't walking around talking like that. We talking about Africa. Particularly the Maghreb region. Morocco. We talking about Liberia. We weren't going around just united saying we all Moors. The Moorish paradox is an American construct from a gentleman from North Carolina by the name of Timothy Drew that transposed his name to Noble Drew Ali under a Shriner concept, which is Masonic, because he called himself a noble. That is British influence. So when we talk about treaties, that's under Parliament. And if anybody knows about Parliament, it had nothing to do with somebody that looked like us. So it would be rhetorical for me to try to say that a treaty is going to benefit me. And me and Ngozi talk about this all the time. That understanding the Moorish paradigm and leaving it as a paradigm and a dialectic is best fitting. It's best because, again, that needs reform. Because it's a modality from 1928. Do you still got a car from 1928? Like that, why does logic stop when it comes to these kind of things? Why would I be trying to enact something from 1928 and it is from 1800 something in 2018?
Because Monica was asking from Dragon Squad, she was saying, where does the Masons get its construct. Is it construct? I can't even see it properly on my phone.
Come from? Where does the Masonic structure come from?
Yeah, Masonic structure.
Which
yes. The Masonic construct comes from the inhabitants of continental Africa, the tribal peoples. That's where the construct comes from.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, like we cover over the part before the Europeans took the masonry, where its pinpoint could come from, of what tribe or what people could have put it out. Like as we explain, sometimes we go into Egyptology and showed like the pharaohs and all that in their gowns and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What's your understanding of that history?
Well, now we're getting into different tribes. Once again, the number of tribes in Africa is astounding. I can tell you that you have Afro-Asiatic speakers, Nilo-Saharan, Niger-Congo, and Khoisan people that are all sectioned through Africa. Because now you're talking about those that created logical and mythological systems that Masonry propagates. Masonry deals in. So there's a philosophical system in Masonry, and then there's an operative system in Masonry. Okay, so there's a speculative and operative system in Masonry. It's twofold. They deal in the metaphysical sciences, and they deal in the
You muted yourself, brother.
Consul, are you there? While I have the opportunity, before Consul comes back, I'm always asking, please donate so that we can go to the US and able to show you the information, show you what the event's about, interview all the people at the event, and able to take people that can go to the States and see for themselves the people that they see online in the YouTube, from the sign letters to the Titans TV to the contents of everything, and creating a family discussion in New York, as well as able to do forms of trading. So we're asking you to help us to by donating, even if it's just £1 or a $1. Every penny counts, because we're trying to create this legacy for our people, about our people, and putting it forward to the mass so that we can able to join together as one. Richie.
Yes, brother. Again,
we want to go in the forms of the reflection of what we've learned so far today.
Listen again, people, for all those tuning in late, we've had Ngozi on the show, going in on the Moorish Treaty, the one that everyone talks about, that will get you those special privileges. Yeah, we've dealt with the history of that, the Kingdom of Morocco. Yeah, we've covered those bases, and then our brother Konsu joined us.
I think he's back. Konsu's back?
No. Then we went over Freemasonry, and that's what we've been talking about so far. Again, I want to big up the chat room, who have been lively all evening. Big up B. Joe. Big up AR23. I gotta say a special big up, to you what, mate? Yeah. So big up to Medellin Rich. Big up to Tell the Truth. Shane the Devil. Big up to Mon from Dagger Squad. Always back in the cause.
Don't forget Mr. Lee.
That's all. Big up Mr. Lee. Big up Mr. Lee. Supporting the cause. Loving the information, yeah.
And everything is everything. Putting her input or his input.
Asking them questions. It's been a lively one. Big up to Benny as well, tuning in earlier. Yeah, there's been a lot of supporters. And again, don't forget them Sarnetta TV Awards. We're trying to get over there. Don't forget to help out Black Eyes TV 7, your black media station. Yeah, you can go to the channel and see the PayPal click button. Click on it again. £1, $1. It all makes a difference to us getting better equipment, being able to run more regular shows. and bring you the information. Yeah, and again, support other black media out there. Yeah, because
and don't forget,
without that, we're not telling our own story. Go to Rick.
And don't forget to go onto the sign GoFundMe as well, because he's trying to raise money to actually put the event in that venue, because you see that event itself is going to be a big, massive event. So we, as from the UK, are trying to make that impact.
Live
so
if
you want to have that opportunity to give us that legacy, something that can be painted in our history, that we went to the United States, and we're asking people out there from the UK or anywhere in Europe, if you want to come along, we're going to organize a full set crew to go to the States. So as I said, we're trying to get this GoFundMe so we can reduce the prices, because when you're going to New York, it's not going to be cheap. And remember, it's in the time of June. So we're trying to raise as much money that we can so that we can able to reduce that price, so that we all can go as one big family to meet our American family to become one. Konsu, are you still there?
Yes, sir. Forgive me, man. My phone went. I had to plug it up, so I'm sorry.
No, that's no problem. Yeah, so I'm asking everyone to see if they can donate to GoFundMe /UK USA link up, or go to Sinetta if you have to, and go and donate to his page of Sinetta Awards. Because you know what? If we can go over there, it's not even about the awards. It's about us people collaborating, coming together as one people. That's what it's about. So, Konsu, as we were speaking.
Yes, sir.
Where did we leave off from?
Well, I think we were talking about specific tribes that have given construct to the Masonic dichotomy. I think you were asking me what origins did it come from in Africa? And I was alluding to, there are an immense number. From Algeria to Chad to Libya to Morocco to Niger, Sudan, Tunisia, which make up Northern Africa, going into West Africa, the Benin people, the Burkina Faso people, the people of Ivory Coast, Gambian people, Ghana. It's an amalgamation of so many people going from the northern region, the western region, the Sahel region, into the southern region. And you see Masonic structures that were very proto, very early, very primal in its inception. And those primal modalities were then evolved into a modern construct by a specific ethnic group, which were the Anglos and the Saxons. So it would take, what I would probably do, and I've been asked this, and I've done it before, I would probably have to show, like a presentation, to show the Masonic link and how it ties into Africa, how Africans were doing Masonic things. But they were the originators of Masonic.
Rob, let me get philosophical for a second with you. Yeah, let me ask you a philosophical question, somewhat. Yeah, or some may view it as a philosophical question. When you're looking at all the drama, all the passa that's going on, the tribulations that we've gone through as a people, yeah, and the journey that we still have to go on to heal ourselves, where do you see the end result?
Oh, wow. I'm going to tell you, I've pondered that many a day. I see a social uprising, and I see a revolution culminating in a global shift in the perception of humanity. As far as wars and things like that, wars are inevitable with human beings. We war with each other all the time. It's a byproduct of nature. However, it will all culminate in a shifting in the precept of human beings. Going to end up with a universal understanding and a different perception of how we operate as human beings.
Okay. I feel you. When you're listening to all of the drama, because I know you must have the usual conversations with your man them, with the girls, with the sisters, about global events, Trumps and heart machines and all the rest of it, yeah?
Yeah.
When you lay in your bed, what gives you peace of mind? Because for me, when I listen to those things, again, I know that, again, it's time has a circular nature for me. So I know it's an ebb and flow thing. Where we may be in a dip right now, there's a time of awakening, a time of enlightenment, and we will return back to black. As you said, there's always going to be a representation of negativity because it has to exist simultaneous to the positive, in my opinion. Yeah, but within that, the construct or the disproportionate power shift that we find ourselves in right now will not last. White people, as far as I'm concerned, can't govern themselves. They're running it into the ground and they've only been here for 2 minutes as far as universal time frames go. So, you know, for me, that's what settles my mind when I get into bed and puts to bed all the other negative conversations of what ifs and what is going on out there. So what for you settles your mind when all's said and done?
Man, that's a lot, bro. What gives me peace of mind is my cognitive understanding of my situation and realizing that I can only do the best that I can do. And when I know consciously that I've given 100% to do the best that I can do for the collective of our people, then that I'm at peace with that. You know personally when you've given your all and when you haven't. And when I know that I've given my all and I've done the best that I can in this world to improve our people, which all of us should do under the auspicity of altruism, in my opinion. We don't need to have a heavy heart. And that shift will eventually happen. Just an evolutionary shift. Because nature operates in that fashion. And so we have to maintain that. So when I rest my head every night and I keep a clear conscience, is dealing with what I could have done better and accepting what I did do better. That's the best way to handle that for me.
And again, we're going to be closing up shortly, but we've got one more question. How can Masonry influence and develop countries in Africa?
I couldn't hear you. You were breaking up. I heard Masonry.
How can Masonry influence the development of the countries within Africa?
What it can do is bridge the gap in proper techniques for learning and assimilation. Proper techniques in learning and assimilation in regards to your own personal culture. Like a lot of us are ignorant of who we are. It's not even deep. We don't really know our story, and especially here in America. But the peoples of Africa don't even comprehend the influence of Africa upon African people due to the diaspora, because they're living day to day. They're trying to eat. They're trying to make it to the next day. They're dealing in political encampments. The people of Somalia are under strife. They're not waking up going Black Power. They're waking up going, how can I dodge a bullet today? How can I get fresh water? When you're under that kind of pressure, you can't sit back and be stoic and be a philosopher. It ain't gonna work like that. So using Masonry to bring rational, common sense to folks that don't have access to common sense, to be able to break down things with proper perspective and maintain rudimentary reasoning, and realize when a certain thing does not have credibility. And that's hard to do because you got to learn how to be self-governing. And being self-governing is the opening door to Pan-African reform. It's knowing how to govern yourself accordingly. So I think that ability would really help the people of Africa. And most people, and I'll say this one last thing to that, is that most of the tribes in Africa were doing it just fine. But politics, socialism, and colonialism changed that for a lot of people in Africa.
Definitely. Listen, we're reaching the 2-hour point. Yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up now. It's been a powerful show. It's been a beautiful, unscripted show. That's why I love it tonight. Yeah. Again,
right.
For people that thought they was going to get to Huckabee, no, you didn't get it. You got Ngozi. You got Brother Konsu. Still giving you the realness, unbiased, untethered to any organization out there. Yeah, we did want a Moorish perspective. We will go back into the Moorish perspective hopefully soon and get, their aspects. And just for that don't know, Tahaka Bey was sharing the same viewpoint as our brother Ngozi, that there is no treaty that stands at this point. It's not running. It's with people that are treaty breakers. It's not going to stand up. And we also covered today Masonry with our brother Konsu for the last hour or so, where he's been giving us a nice full breakdown, the 360, yeah, which is again what Masonry is about, giving you the tools to problems in your everyday life, yeah, in your community and in your nation, yeah. So again, I urge people, go back, rewind the tape, get some of the information, check it out. As I say, you can watch 1,000 YouTube videos. We love it when you subscribe, when you like and you share the videos. But again, this is about sparking your mind into going away and doing the research and making it your own truth. Yeah.
So as I was saying, that's why I always say this house is the school of thoughts. It's not about debating. It's about giving the information and taking what you need from it to able to help yourselves or to provide to what you're trying to do in life. So everyone's got different views and different opinions, but at the same time, it's ways of taking bits and pieces and making your own book. So we always ask you, even though we talk about these things, we need to able to research and follow up on what you've got. Don't just take someone's word for it, but investigate and research about it. And then you know what? At the end of the day, it's for us to come together as one people and have a better understanding. So, Rich.
So what it is, as Terry always says, and I'm going to say it today, it's all black everything. Buy black, be black, teach black, think black, yeah, perpetuate black, yeah, and let's do this thing and support black media out here, yeah. And there's always hashtag power moves.
That's it.
Hashtag
power moves.
Always.
So
always.
Give us something to log out with.
What you gonna say, Konsu?
Well, I just want to say, man, power to the people, power to my beautiful black people, man. I love my black people. And, we need each other, bro. And, I want to promote and keep pushing US and UK, man. Shout out to my people in Haiti. Shout out to my people in Jamaica, Bahamas. Shout out to my people in Cuba. Shout out to South America. Shout out to my people in America, man, my family in Chicago. Shout out to the people that are taking the time listening to this show, man. It's very, very important that we embrace our blackness, man. That's our term. It belongs to us. Black is more than a color, man. It's a lifestyle, and we need to promote it and have unity with each other, man.
Definitely, brother. Definitely. You know what it is, people. Black Eyes TV 7. bringing you that real information. Look at the logo, burn it into your psyche, people. Go out there and spread the word. Yeah, come back, join us for more shows. This has been a beautiful UK-USA link-up show with Ngozi and Brother Konsu, kicking the realness, giving you that real information. Support the GoFundMe for the UK side of the game. Go to the chat, you'll find it. Yeah, support Black Ice TV. Go to the PayPal sign, click on it. Yeah, support Black media, please. Let's get our narrative and our story out there. Yeah, this is.
It's all about the new beginning. And please,
yeah, I need y'all to come on the platform, man, so we can promote the GoFundMe out here in the States.
Yeah,
you guys to the awards, man. So just send me the. Let's talk after the show, man, and let's get you on my. I'll definitely promote that.
Yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. People, thank you for tuning in. We are gone. Peace.
Peace.